All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sandra Sheffer. I'm the president of the Democratic Women's Club of Greater Broward. I'm here. I have the pleasure to interview Maureen Porras, Esquire. And I live in the district that she's running for. So I'm excited to find out what it is that she's going to do for the people in my neighborhood. And I know she has one of those gerrymandered districts that's like all over the place. I'll have her describe it to you, and she can go ahead and introduce herself, and then we'll start talking about what she's going to do when she gets to Tallahassee.
Yes, and good evening, Sandra and everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Maureen Porras. I am one of your Democratic candidates for state representative in District 105. And yes, we do have a very unique district. It is uniquely drawn to cover parts of Miramar, or West Miramar, Doral, Sweetwater, Country Walk, Hammocks, and extends all the way west to Collier County. And that's the very nicely drawn district. That is 105.
yeah, District 105. It's all over the place. It's Chrome Avenue, Alligator Alley, parts of the South. It's like all over the place, right? Yes. All right, so let's just start talking. So I usually ask the candidate, what is it that made you want to, become such a public figure, have people all in your business? Some people are fans, some people are trying to, tear you down. What's the call that you heard that made you want to run for this particular seat?
I think the fact that I was faced with injustice, and I was almost arrested by ICE for trying to defend a client is what really did it for me. So I was practicing my duty as an attorney to represent clients, right? And I was with my clients at an ICE check-in, which, by the way, I'm sure you know that you have an ICE office in Miramar. And
I practice immigration law too. So I'm also an attorney and I practice immigration law. So
wow,
I've been to Miramar more than I would like to admit. And I resist going now because it's just like, I don't want to be here. It's crazy. So yes, I practice immigration law.
Well, wow, that's amazing. So you know about Miramar and ICE. And so I was there one day with one of my clients, and they wanted to unlawfully take him to the back without me. And you know what happens, in the back. You don't
may not come back out.
So, I refused. I invoked his right to counsel, and they wanted to arrest me for that. They wanted me off the property. They were like, you're in federal property. You cannot be here anymore. And they called like 5 different ICE agents on me. And I just, I was shocked. I was shocked. And at the same time, I wasn't, because, a lot of things happen in Miramar that really deprive people from their rights and their due process rights and human rights, really. And so that was really the day that I decided, we have to change our laws. We have to change our elected officials. And I'm going to run because I have been defending our community for over 11 years and our immigrant community. And I knew that we really needed a change in leadership, and we needed to do something at the state level as well. And that's why I'm in this race, to make sure that we have true leadership, that we have someone that can represent this district, and someone that can truly elevate the issues and put the best interests of our communities first.
So what is it that you think you want to do on the state level? I know like there was another rep, I believe in the last session, that was brought up issues of like sanctuary cities and those types of things. Is that one of the things that you're talking about and wanting to do? And what does that look like for you?
So you saw that in last year, they passed SB 168, which essentially bans sanctuary cities and also forces our law enforcement officers to work with ICE to basically execute unlawful ICE detainers, which, again, they're unlawful. They violate the 4th Amendment. And so they're asking our law enforcement officers to violate civil duties, civil rights. And so that was also part of why I decided to run, because that was something that our current representative voted for. And I saw that as a betrayal, not just to our South Florida community, but our immigrant community, especially coming from someone that whose parents are immigrants. And, again, we have, I think, a problem with a lot of our elected officials who are either immigrants themselves or whose parents were immigrants that want to shut the door to other immigrants now that they already had their chance to come in.
Right.
And I'm an immigrant.
Right.
And I came from Nicaragua at the age of 7. And, you know, I don't want us to treat our community that way, especially our immigrant community who has built our cities, who has built our South Florida and our culture. So yeah, that's something that I would like to see changed. I definitely want to make sure that we are reversing that law and that we are focusing on strengthening our communities. And when we give everyone an opportunity to succeed and to be part of it, we're stronger together. So that's something that I would definitely like to see in the legislature.
And I believe that person's running for a state Senate seat right now.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So fun.
Right. A lot of fun. You do like whatever kind of job and then you go try to get a bigger job. Okay, that's what's happening here. Yeah, so yes, we definitely, and I know that, you know, we're close and we definitely need to get more Democrats in the state house. We also need to get more Democrats in the Florida Senate, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to, you know, talk to you so that people can get to know where you stand on the issues, and so we understand how important it is for us, for that voice to be there, right? For the voice of the Democrats to be there and the voice of the people. So I also know that as a rep, you get to introduce 6 bills when you, or, you know, up to 6 bills. Have you thought about what bills you want to introduce or what issues you want to tackle if and when you're sent to Tallahassee?
I have so many different things that I would love to address. One that I've always said that I wanted to introduce or try to do is to ratify the ERA. And, you know, I have said this before, and my campaign has been fueled by so many amazing women. Not only do I owe it to them, but to women, all of us, to make sure that Florida is one of those states that ratifies the ERA so that we can actually have equal protection and rights in the Constitution. And I would love to see that happen. And I know that's not, you know, something that's on a lot of the candidates or elected officials' agenda, but that would be on my agenda.
Right. I know Dottie Joseph, who's running for District 108, and that's one of the things that she also is she's very supportive of, and she's very involved in. So you'll have some support, at least I know, from that rep on that particular issue.
Yeah, definitely. We can definitely team up, and I want to make sure that it's done. I would love to see a huge group support that.
Yes, and that's important. So, so what else are you thinking of? I know I've spoken to some candidates, not in this district, in the other districts, and environment seems to be a really big thing, right? We've had a lot of deregulation on the federal side that's impacted our state. We're dealing with red tides, blue-green algae, all those different types of things. What's your position on the environment, and what is it, what is it that you would do or try to work on any, or do you plan on working on any environmental issues?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely necessary, especially in this district and all of Florida. And I just want to preface, you know, this with the fact that coming into this race, I really, I knew we had issues, right? We have environmental issues. There's climate change, there's sea level rise, there's so many different issues. And here in our district, we have very big water quality issues. And I knew this, but I needed to know more. And so to inform myself and to better make decisions and really think of ways how we can fix this, I enrolled in a 10-week leadership course, environmental leadership course by Catalyst Miami. And so we talked about so many different issues. I met so many different people. We networked, and I just really dived into the environmental group and field. And I even have now an environmental policy advisor who is amazing. He's a biologist, has a master's in environmental policy and health. And so since me filing back in November, I have learned so much. And right now we have 2 issues regarding our water and our quality of water. One of them is a policy issue and the other one's a budget issue. The policy issue is the fact that we cannot properly fund our conservation programs to restore the Everglades, restore the natural flow of water, and make sure that, you know, we're not getting all these algae blooms, because red tide was a horrible, horrible thing. But these things happen all the time. We have algae blooms almost on a daily basis. And people don't realize that. They think that it's just, you know, that one time that red tide happened and it could happen again. No, we have algae blooms all the time. So what I would like to do and what I would like to see is to properly fund conservation programs so that we can finally start buying up enough land to restore the Everglades, restore the natural flow of water, and to also make sure that we are enacting strict pollution laws, because the main culprit in these algae blooms and in the contamination of our water is unfortunately agricultural runoff from the fertilizers. And that needs to stop, that needs to be managed. And we need to, again, also make sure that we're not just properly funding our conservation programs, but that we are also managing our funds properly to buy new land and not to continuously manage or invest in lands that we already own. Because if we don't buy enough land, we're not restoring the Everglades. So that's one. That's the policy problem that we have, because it's all based on policy.
Stop you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but let me stop you a little bit on that. You said something about like we can't properly fund it. Is it like the money's not there, or is this not being properly funded? Like what is it? Okay, so how is it that what can be done in order for the money to be there? Because we can't continue to ignore it, right?
Yeah, what we have to do is make sure that we're not we're properly funding, in the sense that we're supposed to be funding it with 30% of the tax that's collected from the documentary tax, and we're not doing that. So we're putting in a lower amount of money, more than it really should have, or less than we really should have, and then we're using that small amount of money to manage land that we already own, instead of using it how it was intended to be used once Amendment 1 was passed in 2014, which was to buy new land. So there's a whole argument that's being made that the funds from that program weren't supposed to go for just new lands, but people that voted for Amendment 1, the way that they saw it was that it was for purchasing new land and not to use that money to manage land that had already been purchased. So it suffers from two different issues: misfund or misuse of funds and underfunding.
Okay, and then the other thing you said something about part of the reason why, we having these algae blooms and all that is from agricultural runoff, right? Is that the same as saying like Big Sugar is like just dumping all kind of stuff in the water and just kind of messing it up for everybody because there was some deregulation happening?
Both. So Big Sugar has land that is in the middle of the Everglades that we need so that we can restore the Everglades. So we're not buying enough land from them, and we're not terminating leases that they have. And again, that's a policy issue. That's something that we can fix at the state level if we really wanted to. And of course, they're also using agriculture fertilizer, right? That's also seeping into our waterways and contaminating them. So those are two big issues. I think everything is kind of like intertwined,
Yeah.
And that's the policy issue. But we also have a budget issue, right? Because we have to fix and we have to convert our septic tanks to sewer. And that's where we don't have funds to do that. That's where the money issue comes in. I don't think it's more of a policy issue. I think we want to get it done. We just don't have enough money. And so it's definitely going to take a couple $2 billion to do that. And I think that at the state level, we can seek federal funding, state funding, local funding, and even do kind of like matching fund programs to make sure that we convert every home that has a septic tank into sewer. And we also have to make sure that we are restoring our very aging and fragile sewer lines that are bursting all the time. And we saw that in Fort Lauderdale not too long ago.
Absolutely.
So that's the budget problem. I think we can definitely try to come up with some money. Again, it's all about prioritizing. So far, I don't believe that the environment and our water has been prioritized enough. And I think we need to do that. And that's what I would like to do at the state level. Okay. That's actually one of my 3 top priorities. And that's part of my platform and my agenda.
Okay. And the other thing that's real big right now is healthcare, right? Healthcare, some people are floating Medicare for all, but something needs to be done in terms of health insurance. I'm one of those people that that's always struggled for about having health insurance. I've been self-employed for a very long time. Every now and then I'll get a job, and then I don't have to worry about health insurance for me, but then I have to worry about health insurance for my children, because depending on how much I'm making, if I add the children to the health insurance, I'm literally going to work to pay for health insurance, and I won't get any money, right? And I'm a professional, and I feel that way. So I can imagine someone with a regular job making whatever regular income, how it is that they can do that. So what is your position on like Medicare for all, either expanding Medicaid to include people that's in that funny dollar amount bracket? We're not poor, but then we're not rich either. So do you have any plans on dealing with that issue?
Yes. So I have been there too. I have been uninsured. I hate saying this, but I've lost teeth because I didn't have, I'm serious, I didn't have dental insurance.
Well, yeah, dental is a whole nother thing. And even when you have it, it doesn't cover much, right?
Yeah,
you still have a lot of out-of-pocket expenses.
And it's a sad reality. And I was there, my husband's also an attorney. And when we were in law school, we did not have health insurance. And in fact, when we were in law school, we had to pay the penalty for not having health insurance. And so, I know the struggle. It's very difficult. What we can do at the state level, and I think what most Democrats agree on doing, is to, of course, expand Medicaid, right? And so to get coverage for those people that are in that gap. And to do that, we're going to need money, right? Or at least we're going to have to show how we're going to do that. If we're in the minority, which, I'm hoping we're not next year, but we've got a lot of seats to catch up on, right? Mm-hmm. If we are in the minority, to be able to present expanding Medicaid, you would want to present it with how you're going to pay for it. And there are plenty of ways to do that. And by the way, Florida can do this because recently, who was it, Missouri? A red state expanded it, I think like 2 days ago. Yes, we can do it. We can't fall behind.
Right.
So the way that we're going to pay for it, or hopefully, part of paying for it, is to make sure that corporations are paying their fair share of taxes. We have to restructure our corporate tax structure, because it's, they're getting away with making business, making a profit here in Florida and not paying their fair share. And there are two types of taxes that I would like to see done. One of them is I would like to see us adopt an economic nexus law, which basically requires corporations and businesses that may not have a physical building here in Florida, but that make online sales and profit from online sales, collect and remit sales taxes. Now, this is not a new tax. This is not an increase in taxes. This is a tax that exists and that we're just not collecting. And so if we collect some of that money, it's going to bring in around estimated $700 to $750 million a year that can truly go towards funding healthcare, different things. And it also levels the playing field between a business that's here, that has a physical building in Florida, that's selling the same item, but sells it with sales tax. And so, the consumer is not going to want to pay the sales tax, so they'll buy it from the online retailer instead. So it's going to definitely level the playing field for those businesses that are here, that are paying this, that are collecting and remitting those sales taxes. And we are one of the only 2 states that collect sales taxes that has not enacted or adopted an economic nexus law. And there's no reason for that. We need to do it. That's one. And I think it's going to get bipartisan support because it was actually introduced, I believe, earlier this year by a Republican legislator. So imagine, they even want to collect on these taxes. So I think it's going to be something that we can do. And then just very quickly, the other one is to make sure that businesses are filing combined tax returns so that any profit that their shell business that's located outside of Florida is making is being collected and being and they're paying taxes on that. And again, that's also going to bring in some money. So you know, that's at least one of the strategies that I have as far as introducing legislation to expand Medicaid and showing and demonstrating that we can, you know, at least collect some funds to pay for it, because that has been the hesitation, right? The fact that we don't have enough money. We have enough money to fund charter schools and increase all that money being funneled in there, but we don't have enough money to help our citizens, especially during COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So.
Yeah, so you brought up an interesting thing, right? So one of the things, you know, there's a couple school board seats open. One of the at-large seats are open, and teacher pay is a big thing. There's this thing about, like, you know, sending these children back to school, and people are still going back and forth on that. Like, what do you think about teacher pay? Do you plan on doing any advocacy work for that? And what do you think about the way school look moving forward, given the governor and some of the most of the counties are in disagreement on what that's supposed to look like in a couple of weeks?
Teachers definitely need higher pay. Let me turn this off. And you know, I know we took a step in the right direction, but it was like a half a step, a quarter step. It was so tiny that it was more of an offense, honestly. And especially to teachers that have been teaching, that are veterans, that have been teaching forever, their salary barely increased. And so, yes, I would love to make sure that we are paying our teachers a livable wage, and something that a wage that they deserve, because they have a very important role to play in our society. They are teaching our children. And I definitely do not think that we are ready to go back to school, have children go back to school fully right now. I think that if our governor and our elected officials had a better response and had responded adequately and competently to this pandemic, we wouldn't be having this conversation, or we would be having a much different conversation. So as far as, you know, children going back to school, I don't think that it's absolutely safe right now. It's really unfair to the teachers, to their families, to the students, to parents. And I know that a lot of parents are struggling because they don't, you know, they may be single parents and they don't have anywhere to take their children. And so that's something that I also want to bring awareness to, that our government has failed to help these parents, you know, balance all of this, honestly. And so I would like to see some funds go into programs that are going to help single parents get affordable and safe childcare, and also work with employers to have them be, you know, flexible with their employees and work something out, because we can. A lot of people are working remotely. And again, to those that can't work remotely, we need to come up with better options for them. And funding programs is one good way to do that. And we haven't addressed that issue. And I want to address it at the state level. And I really don't think we're going to be out of this anytime soon.
Right. And on the federal level, they can't even agree to give people $600 more a month for, like, you know, I think it's a month or a week. I'm not sure what it is, but they can't even agree on that. And to me, it seemed like it's such a detachment, right? Like, they just don't have a clue on what it is to live, like, what it is to live, and, you know, how much money things cost, right? Because you have some people who probably haven't been working since March, right? And they can't even agree to extend unemployment for them when they haven't been working and there's really no job to go to now. Like, it's not like there's a new job that's out here that they can go get in the middle of all of what we're going through. So it's important to have people that are familiar with these issues being in Tallahassee or having a seat at the table in order for them to kind of put some perspective on it, because there might be a bunch of people there that just really don't understand, like, what regular people are going through on a day-to-day basis, right? One of the other things that's a really big issue in South Florida is housing. People can't afford to live here, right? Like, I'm like, I don't think I can afford to live here. I'm like, why do I live here? It's expensive. You know, and again, I have a whole bunch of degrees that should make it easy for me, but it's not. So what are we going to do? You know, like, are there any plans to try to figure out what this housing situation in South Florida is?
Well, thankfully, for the first time in, I think, over a decade, or I don't know, more, they finally fully funded the Sadowski Fund, which will help with some affordable housing projects. And I think that's good, but we need to do more. And I don't know why it took this long to fully fund it, because it's been an issue. Affordable housing is an issue and has been an issue, especially for the elderly residents. In Broward, we have a really high concentration of elderly folks, right? That they really can't afford their housing. They're going to outlive probably their retirement savings. And so they're struggling with paying for rent, with paying for their prescriptions, with paying for anything really. And we need to help them. We need to create and come up with more programs, especially for affordable housing and healthcare and prescriptions. And we need to do more. We need to fund programs to make sure that happens. And hopefully we can do that at the state level in conjunction with the local and county levels too.
Absolutely. And even if they own their home, because my mom owns her house, right? But she has to pay taxes and insurance every year. And when she gets her whatever that Social Security check is, right? I'm like, it's not making sense. Like, I mean, she literally has no money by the time she pays taxes and insurance and this and that. And so it is very difficult. So yeah, they definitely need some sort of assistance. Something has to give. I think the county gave her like a free bus pass. So like, I think that's the only. So she has a free bus pass. So if she needs to get around, she can get around. But even the transportation in Florida isn't even the best. So if she misses one bus, she's waiting an hour for the next one. So it was nice of them to give her the bus pass, but I think transportation is also a big issue in South Florida. Do you have any thoughts on how we can make that better in this state?
Yeah, I mean, I have heard a lot of good ideas from some of the commissioners, some of the candidates for commission that are really looking into ways to expand public transportation. And I think we definitely should, and to improve it, because like you mentioned, it's just not workable. It really isn't. So I think that investing in public transportation is one way that we can help, and making sure that it's a good quality. At the state level, we can definitely help fund some of these projects. I don't really agree with creating more tolls and constructing more highways with tolls, because we're not seeing a good result. I don't see a reduction in commute time. No. And so if someone tells me they want the state to build another highway with more tolls, we're really gonna have to look at that.
So let me give you an example. So I live in Miramar, and as you know, and I go to downtown to go to court. And if you ever have to use that express lane in the morning, it's like $10 sometimes, right? Like if it's one of those heavy traffic mornings, it's $10 just to get on that part of the highway. So it's like, so now I'm spending, like $10, $15 just to get downtown. It doesn't make sense.
You're telling me. My husband, we live in Doral. My husband works at the Broward County Courthouse. So, before COVID, he was driving every day, thousands of dollars in tolls. So yeah. And, the commute time was still pretty heavy. It's still pretty long. So I think investing in public transportation is a good way to go. And like I said, I like some of the ideas that some of these commissioners are coming up with. And I really do hope that we can focus on that too, because traffic is an issue. And especially in a lot of the different parts in the district, especially in the whole Hammocks Country Walk area, it's a big issue. So, and I used to live in that area too, so I know. And Doral is getting there too. It's not the traffic's not as heavy as the Hammocks area, but it's gonna get there eventually. More people are moving to our state.
Yeah. And
you have to account for that.
A lot happening in Doral. So I used to work in Doral a long time ago, like that in the 90s, right? I used to work there, and I don't think it went past 87th Avenue. Now it's way past 87th Avenue. You guys have they have this great mall with the comedy place and the restaurants and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a lot more traffic in that particular area. So we started off talking about equal rights for women and all of that type of stuff, right? And when I really got into this political thing, because I know that I wanted to be real active in some form or fashion for the 2020 election, I met a lot of female candidates, right? And one of the things they were saying that it's very tough running as a female candidate, right? Has that been your experience? And let's talk how has that been? Have you found have you found your tribe to get some support, or even with that tribe, how has it been? Have you been attacked or anything on the campaign trail? If you want to share, because I know they said it's a tough road.
It absolutely is, and I can attest to that. There are definitely double standards. I think female candidates have to be overqualified and more than their male candidates, and they're still going to question your ability to represent your community and your ability to be a good, viable candidate, honestly. And just recently, I was someone that was targeted for an attack on my stance on reproductive health. Can you believe that? This early in the race, in a primary. So it's basically, we just saw today an attack, an online ad stating that I did not support a woman's right to their reproductive choice, right? Basically saying I was anti-choice. Which is extremely ridiculous. The ad, honestly, was a very desperate and weak attempt to mislead and confuse voters. And the claim that I support restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion is completely baseless. And they cited to a Florida Conference of Catholic Bishops candidate questionnaire, and stating that I support restrictions. And the truth is, my true answers to that FCCCB candidate questionnaire can be found on their website, and I invite everyone to review it. As can be seen on their website, you can see that I do not favor restrictions of any kind on a woman's decision, obviously regarding her own reproductive health care. Additionally, they stated that I worked with a congressional representative who was basically anti-choice, right? I interned for a Republican congressional representative when I was in college at FIU to work on immigration issues and projects and learn about our immigrant communities, because I have been representing and providing access to immigration legal services for over 11 years. And that's really how I started my career in the immigration field, by interning for a congressional representative who was creating all these different immigration projects. And I was interning while I was at college at FIU. And again, I was pursuing that career path. So, my immigration internship does not make me anti-choice. And the internship, in fact, had nothing to do with a women's right or any other legislative issues. And my record of raising women's issues and protecting women's rights to make our own reproductive decisions is clear. And that's why I am endorsed by Ruth's List and Emily's List. And honestly, I think that as a young Latina, I had to look for an internship anywhere. And again, that's a really big double standard. They want women to jump through hoops to really prove themselves more than men. And that attack was baseless, and it doesn't say anything about my credentials, and people can see my history and my background. And again, it was just meant to confuse and mislead voters, unfortunately. And so, again, it was an early attack, and I wasn't expecting it. But I want everyone to see and understand that my background speaks for itself, and whatever I've done speaks for itself.
And that's unfortunate, because you work and you learn from whoever you can work and learn from, right? You know what I mean? And because you work from someone and you're learning from someone, that doesn't mean that you subscribe to their ideology. No, you probably all work for bosses that we disagree with, you know what I mean? But you need the information, and sometimes you should get that information and see how the other side see it, right? If you see how the other side see it, you can also prepare for that. You're like, oh, so you know what? This is something I probably didn't think about. I didn't know people would have this perspective. perspective, and you can take that and it can make you better at what it is that you're doing, right? So, I don't think you should have to explain or justify the fact that you work for someone that might have had some views that are different from yours, because oftentimes you need to gain that experience, and you gain that experience how you gain that experience. And that doesn't say, and even if that was the case, right? Like if it was someone you supported, from that experience, you might be like, you know what, I can't roll with y'all, right? Like sometimes you need to have that experience to learn that, you know what, I probably thought I thought like this, but I'm like, no, I don't think like this, right? You need to do things a little bit different. So, the fact that, they're trying to put you in a position to like justify something that you did like while you were in college, it's a little much, and it's, and I would even say it's disingenuous, and there's really no place for that, right?
It's absolutely misleading, and it's sad. It really is, because voters know who I am. People that are supporting me, they know my record, they know my background, and they're not fooled by anything like this.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you're right. We have to learn how to work with everyone.
Right. And I don't want the people that's getting to know you to be fooled by that either, right? Because, like, so the ones who know you, and the ones that we're trying to introduce you to, you don't want them to think that, okay, this is her position on the issue. Because when I reached out to you, one of the things that we wanted to know, because people had been asking me, like, who? I said, well, you know what? Let me get them to come and talk to us, and then you can make your decision based on what it is, since you really don't know. So even for the ones who don't know you and they're getting to know you now, you don't want them to have this impression of you that's misleading and incorrect.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, so there was a question in the audience, right? Because you talked about a Sadusky fund. You kind of threw out charter schools right there. That's a hot issue too. I have a kid in a charter school, and I also have a kid in a public school, right? So, like, what? And you were saying something about charter schools. So they wanted you to elaborate on what it is that your thoughts are on charter schools.
Yes. So I definitely do not want charters or our public's tax money to go into something that will enrich private individuals. And unfortunately, a lot of the charter schools are being managed by for-profit corporations. Mm-hmm. I would like to see that changed. I would like to see charter schools be managed by nonprofit organizations, because I don't think anyone should be profiting from our money, from our taxpayer money. And also, I do recognize that charter schools provide important service in areas that are of high need. And so I'm fully conscious of that, and I'm aware of it, but I really would like to stop defunding and underfunding our public education system, because what's happening is they're taking all of the taxpayers' money and, well, not all of it, but a lot of it, a big chunk of it, and funneling into charter schools that are, again, run by for-profit corporations who should not be enriching themselves off of this. And we need to make sure that we have a good working public school system. I'm a product of our public school system. Even though I came here at the age of 7, I was fortunate enough to go through elementary school, middle school, high school, and college here through public schools. And I want it to be second to none. I want it to be the strongest choice for our children. And I want every child to have that opportunity, regardless of their socioeconomic status, their gender, their race. I want everyone to have the same opportunities that I did. And, that means in the public school system, I would love to see that. So that's where I stand as far as charter schools. I want to make sure that we are investing properly into our public school system.
Right. And that's a good answer too. And I'm also an immigrant. I'm a child of immigrant. I think I came here when I might've been 5, about to be 6, something like that. So I've been here like a very long time too. And I went to public elementary, middle, senior high school. I went to a private college, but when I did my graduate school, I was back in the public school system. And I remember when I was in high school, we had all kind of programs, right? I learned how to type in school, which was a very good skill when I went to college. I had friends who took home ec. My brother was in the band for most of the time that he was there. They were able to travel. They participated in the Orange Bowl. There was like all kind of after school program. Now there's hardly anything, right? There's hardly anything. There was a lot of arts in school, like, you know, and they've taken out the arts you know, in place, and they wanted to do a lot of STEM stuff, but even that isn't working. So I definitely agree with you that, you know, they can do more with the public school system. And again, full disclosure, I have a son that that's in a charter school. That situation worked out best for him. But and I did it because the public school we had here, there was a lot missing with it, right? So if there was a better public middle school, then I would have him in public school too, because I'm a strong believer in public school. And I have a daughter that's on the autism spectrum that the charter schools couldn't meet her needs, you know, so she's getting the public school system was definitely the best choice for her. And I agree that they should you know, make public schools more stronger and put in all the services that they need. And the other thing is, like, I know that a lot of the charter schools, they start and then they close, right? So that's a problem that they had. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing that that's an issue. And remember that they're also not following the same policies and guidelines, and they're not properly supervised. They're not they don't have to follow the same standards that public schools do. And so the closure rate is pretty high. And like I said, certain charter schools meet the needs of a community that maybe the public schools can't. And so it's not all charter schools, but definitely I want to see our public education system stronger. You know, we found an issue with our public education system, and instead of properly funding it and fixing it, we decided to create a whole different school system
and outsource it.
It doesn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me. And I think our children deserve better, and they deserve a good quality education, you know, regardless of where you live.
Exactly. And I totally agree, right? I totally agree, because I went to a real hood high school, right? You know, I'm a Red Raider all day, proud of it, still love that school, you know what I mean? And I learned like so much from there, and depending on what program you were in, because we had a range of students. We had some that, you know, needed a lot of extra help, and we had like an honors, you know, AP program at that school. So I was able to get a decent education, you know, pretty good education, because I went to some pretty good schools, good education out of there. So I believe in the public school system. Even when they are in bad neighborhoods, they still have a lot to offer our students. So I'm definitely for it, and I think we can do more. So we're coming up on time, because I know you have another event like at 6 o'clock. So give your closing statement and let the people know why they should vote for you.
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to be here, and you definitely you're very energetic. I love it. And thank you everyone for watching. Again, running for State Representative, District 105. I really urge everyone to join me. I do have you know, a list of elected officials and organizations, leaders, community leaders, and of course, voters that are supporting the campaign. And we are in one of the most flippable districts here in South Florida. And we're definitely gonna need a strong candidate to flip it in November and take on and the challenge of those Republicans in November. And we're gonna flip the seat. Regardless of, you know, who gets through, we're gonna flip the seat. And I have no doubt. So I hope that you'll join me. You can visit my website at maureenporras.vote, or you can also search for me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I will respond, send any questions. And, you know, even if you just want to say hi, send a message. So thank you again to everyone. And thank you again for the opportunity, Sandra.
Right. And I want you to have the last word, but you said something about how important it was to flip the district. One of the other things that people need to understand is that they're going to do redistricting this time, right? Because it's something that they do every 10 years. So, you know, so tell them about it. It's important to do the census and explain what it is, what that means if, you know, we don't, you know, do the census and we don't elect enough Democrats in order to be part of that process and have this conversation about when they're drawing these district lines.
We definitely have to fill out that census, because if we don't, they may even cut a district. It doesn't always have to grow or add a district. They may cut a district from us. So it's extremely important. It's extremely important for us to get money to fund hospitals, schools, communities. And so I know that they cut the time to respond to census, I think, a month short, which is going to be a challenge. So I urge everyone to just go online. It's really easy. I think you can fill it out in like 2 minutes, because our future and the future of our districts and the funds that you're going to receive in your community depend on you filling this out.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And give you a website, and so if people want to donate, they can still donate to your campaign, right? I think you guys have up until about the 13th of August to accept donations, and you're canvassing because they're voting in Broward on Saturday. Miami-Dade has already started early voting. They started on the 3rd, and I think Broward starts on the 8th. So you're gonna need volunteers to help you out, people to give money. So tell them how to do that, in order for them to help you out.
Absolutely. Go to my website, maureenporras.vote. You can actually sign up to volunteer. You can donate. And early voting in Broward starts on Saturday. So, go out and vote. I know that a lot of you have already returned your vote by mail ballots, but early voting is going to be open on Saturday. And we definitely would love to have anyone that would want to volunteer and join our team. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, and have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.